Most people think that once you get arrested for a felony in Texas, the charges are already locked in. But in many cases, there's another major step that happens before the case officially moves forward. And it happens in a room you're not even allowed to enter. My name is Joseph Ruiz. I'm a criminal defense lawyer here in Houston, Texas, and today I want to walk you through how the grand jury process actually works in Texas, what a true bill really means, what a no bill means, and why the early stages of a felony can completely change the direction of someone's life. Because a lot of people hear the words grand jury and think it means trial, but it doesn't. A grand jury is not there to decide whether someone is guilty. Their job is much more narrow. They're deciding whether there is sufficient probable cause to formally charge someone with a felony offense. In Texas, a grand jury is made up of 12 citizens. Prosecutors present evidence to them behind closed doors, and if at least 9 of those jurors believe there's enough evidence to support the accusation, the grand jury returns what's called a true bill, which means an indictment moves forward. If they don't think there's enough evidence, the case gets no-billed, and in many situations, the prosecution stops right there. Now here's the part that catches a lot of people off guard. The process is completely secret. The person accused is not in the room, their lawyer is not in the room, no judge is sitting there deciding guilt or innocence. The prosecutors present their side of the story, witnesses may testify, evidence may be shown, and then the grand jurors deliberate privately. So imagine finding out your future is being discussed in a room where you don't even get to speak for yourself. That's why these cases move so quickly behind the scenes. I've had people call my office completely shocked after receiving notice that their case was going to a grand jury. They thought that because they bonded out of jail, things had calmed down. In reality, the felony case was still building in the background. And this is where timing matters, because one of the biggest mistakes people make is waiting until they're indicted to start taking the case seriously. Sometimes there's an opportunity to intervene before that happens. For example, there are situations where we can prepare what's called a grand jury packet. That can include witness statements, surveillance footage, photographs, medical records, text messages, timelines, polygraph results, or anything else that gives context to what actually transpired. And that context matters, because grand jurors are regular people. They're trying to figure out whether the accusation actually makes sense based on the evidence in front of them. I remember a case involving an aggravated assault allegation where the initial police reports made my client look like the aggressor. On paper, it sounded terrible, but once we dug into the facts of the case, the situation looked completely different. There were witness statements that were never included in the original offense report. There was surveillance footage showing the complaining witness approaching first. There were injuries on my client that supported self-defense. Once we organized everything and presented the bigger picture, the grand jury decided to not indict the case. A grand jury is supposed to act as a safeguard. The idea is that felony charges should not move forward unless there's enough evidence to support them. Another thing people don't realize is that grand juries hear case after case after case, which means the quality of the presentation matters, the details matter, the credibility of the witnesses matters. Small facts can change how a case is viewed. And once someone is indicted for a felony, the stakes get very real very quickly. Now you're talking about formal felony prosecution, potential prison exposure, bond conditions, court appearances, and a criminal record that can affect jobs, housing, professional licenses, and future opportunities. That's why I always tell people this: if you find out your case may be going to a grand jury, do not assume you should just sit back and wait to see what happens. This is one of the most important stages of the case. I'm Joseph Ruiz, criminal defense lawyer here in Houston, Texas, and if you or someone you know is under investigation for a felony level offense, or you believe your case may be headed to a grand jury, contact my office as early as possible. The sooner we start investigating, gathering evidence, and telling your side of the story, the better chance we have to protect your future before formal charges are even filed. And if you found this video helpful, make sure to subscribe and follow, because I break down how criminal cases actually work in Texas so people understand what they're really facing before it's too late.